right now on 5 on your side at 10.
Weekend warm. When the temperatures soar and how that could impact some students heading back to school for the first time.
And the start of school can also mean the return of spreading germs. Our Verified team reveals which items the kids lug around are the germiest. And our top story tonight, hit and steal. Criminals causing an accident to steal your car.
Happening all over the country.
What you should do if you're in a crash.
Tonight, police are on the hunt for 3 masked men who bumped into a driver and then took off with his car. Good evening. I'm Ann Allred. Mike has the night off. The brazen crime happened early this morning in Webster Groves on South Elm. Tonight, our Brent Solomon is live with a look at a growing trend of criminals taking advantage of you when you least expect it. Brent?
And those criminals getting to work early this morning. We're talking 6 in the morning. Now investigators here at WashU are working with city police and possibly a county agency to catch some crafty crooks.
It started at 6 Wednesday morning. A construction worker walking in a parking lot near Duncan and Boyle Avenues when masked criminals in a stolen white Hyundai demanded his wallet and cell phone. He gave them over.
If somebody's holding a gun on you, the best idea is just to give them whatever they need, because you don't want to get into an argument with the guy that's holding the gun on you, because you might get shot, you know? And so what are you going to get shot for? Your wallet? Your watch? I mean, come on.
But wait, there's more. Less than 2 hours later, police in Webster Groves say someone driving a white Hyundai bumped into a black Dodge Caravan. The driver of the Caravan got out. That's when 3 male criminals got out the Hyundai, one of them pointing a gun at the other driver's head. That's when they ditched the stolen car and stole his Caravan.
Happening all over the country.
Personal safety expert Dr. Michael Barberi says this is becoming a trend.
Your instincts tell you to automatically get out of the car, right? Don't do it.
Because criminals are getting crafty, he says we have to rethink what we do when someone hits our car.
The new way of thinking is that if you get out, somebody's going to steal your car. And you walk back to the back of the car to see how bad the damage is, because there's no damage. These guys don't want to wreck the car. They don't want to steal it. So if you're in the car, you want to lock the doors, call 911, and if the guy doesn't see you get out of the car, the probability of him driving away is going to be extremely high.
All right, now I do want to tell you that white Hyundai was reported stolen out of St. Louis. Now investigators here at WashU believe that the same people involved in the robbery earlier in the day on Duncan are in that stolen Dodge Caravan from 2 hours later. Live in St. Louis, Brent Solomon, 5 on your side.
Another fall-like night across St. Louis. Temperatures will drop into the 60s, even the 50s in some areas. So open up the windows, maybe give that AC a break. Weather First Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell says the summer cool down, though, won't last long.
You know, it's not abnormal per se to get a few cooler days in July or August. It usually doesn't last, and this won't either. But we still have a couple more pretty comfortably warm days around the St. Louis area before we get back into that really hot, humid pattern going into early next week. There's a look out into St. Charles. Skies are mainly clear right now. Don't think we're going to see quite as much fog around early on Thursday morning as we did this morning. Temperatures, they've dropped back already into the upper 60s in the coolest spots. We are still in St. Louis right now, holding in the low to mid 70s under that mainly clear sky. Some kids are already going back to school. Sunrise tomorrow morning's at 6:17. 7 o'clock temperature is 67 degrees. Back into the 80s tomorrow afternoon. Really 80s heading into the first part of the weekend. It's comfortable into Saturday. The heat will really start building, though, on Sunday, and quite a dry stretch of weather ahead for the next several days. More on that and where it won't be dry in just a few minutes, Ann.
Tonight, a man shot by police hours ago in North St. Louis remains in the hospital. We first told you about the breaking news near Fairground Park this afternoon. Our Robert Townsend is live outside police headquarters downtown with more. Robert.
And police tell us their drug enforcement detectives shot the suspect after that suspect pointed a gun at officers. Investigators say Wednesday afternoon, detectives with St. Louis Police Department's Drug Enforcement and Interdiction Team and SWAT team members were hot on the trail of a known drug suspect.
They observed a transaction, followed the suspect, attempted to conduct a traffic stop for a violation. I believe it was a plate violation.
Police say within moments, the 21-year-old man sped down an alley, suddenly hopped out of this white car, and ran across a field near Linton Avenue in Penrose in the Fairground neighborhood.
DEI officer was right behind him, as well as several SWAT officers who had their body cameras on. It was at this point one of the SWAT officers observed that he was armed with a handgun with an extended magazine. So he yelled out over the radio, "He's got a gun, he's got a gun."
Police say the armed man kept running.
The detective who was following him was right behind him. He observed that the subject turned once behind him, pointing the gun in his direction. The officer did not discharge his weapon at that time.
But seconds later,
the subject ran a little bit further towards Linton, at which point the suspect then turned again, this time further towards the officer, flourishing him with that handgun. The officer discharged his weapon several times.
The officer shot the suspect at least twice. No officers were hurt.
He don't do drugs, he don't have them.
The man's furious girlfriend says at the time of the shooting, her boyfriend had their 1-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son in the back seat of the car.
He was trying to make his way back home with his kids when all of this happened for no reason, out of nowhere.
The regular protocol will apply. The officer will be drug screened. All the body camera units have been seized.
Now, police tell us they recovered that gun. They also say the suspect underwent surgery this afternoon and he's expected to survive. We're live downtown. I'm Robert Townsend, 5 on your side.
Tonight, a St. Louis man is headed to prison for the next 120 years for producing child sex abuse material. A judge handed down that sentence to 44-year-old Anthony Lemesey today. A jury found him guilty back in March. Prosecutors say he recorded himself sexually abusing the child and took videos of 2 other children in the shower. Lemesey was arrested in Tacoma, Washington. FBI agents found him hiding in a clothes dryer. A St. Charles water treatment facility is back in operation right now. The city closed its last well at the Elm Point water treatment plant earlier this week because of a drop in free ammonia levels in the water. The chemical compound helps disinfect the water. A new inspection found those levels are back to normal. Only 1 of the 7 wells at that plant are still used due to ongoing contamination from an Ameren substation. Tonight, parents at an all-girls charter school are voicing their frustrations after the school's abrupt closure less than 1 week before the new school year. Hawthorne Leadership School for Girls focused on STEM curriculum for grades 6 through 12, and leaders blame low enrollment, among other things, for this closure. At least one parent we talked with today says she was disappointed by the school's promise to help them find new schools.
All I saw was an opportunity to go to another St. Louis public school. I needed more options. There's a lot of things that I need to do in order to get my baby ready for school next week.
Washington University, which sponsored the charter school, said it supports the difficult decision made by the school's Board of Trustees. Students in Edwardsville headed back to school this morning. Tomorrow, students in Lebanon and the Grant Community Consolidated District near Fairview Heights return to class. Missouri public schools start next week, and we've put together a back-to-school guide at KSTK.com. Just text the word school to 314-425-5355. We'll send you a link. Kids returning to the classroom can also mean the return of spreading germs. One thing most students bring to and from school carries the most bacteria. Tonight, our Verify team reveals which item is one of the germiest. Here's Jeremy Baker.
Germs can lurk almost anywhere, not just on our bodies, but on non-living objects as well. That leads us to tonight's claim. Is it true that the backpack is one of the germiest things that a child brings to and from school? Our sources for this Verify are Dr. Mandy Tibbles-Fotek, a pediatric hospitalist with University Health and associate professor with UT Health San Antonio, and Chris Pritchett, an associate professor with the Department of Microbiology at East Tennessee State University. Dr. Svatek said backpacks are a perfect place for germs to be transferred from one child to another.
The hands touch the backpack, and if several individuals are touching the backpack, or for instance, lunch boxes go into the backpack, you are exchanging items with friends or getting your hands on different things, putting them in your mouth. All of those items can take bacteria and then transfer them to the backpack.
Pritchett echoed what Dr. Svatek had to say with, there's lots of nooks and crannies in a backpack, and because there's lots of nooks and crannies, they pick up some of the bacteria on the floor. Whether it's on the bathroom or schoolroom floor, then there's always the potential that they're bringing some of that home. So yes, it is true. The backpack is one of the germiest things that a child brings to and from school. Dr. Tipple-Svatek also recommended wiping the backpack down daily and making sure your child carries sanitizer as well.
What can we verify for you? Send us your question or the claim you see online and you're not sure, is it real or fake? The email address, verify@kstk.com. Today was Governor's Day at the Illinois State Fair. The buzz among Illinois Democrats is next year's race for president. The DNC is holding its convention in Chicago next summer, and if for some reason Joe Biden is not on the ticket, Governor J.B. Pritzker would have a home field advantage. Illinois voters at the fair weighed in.
Congressman from Minnesota, Dean Phillips, said J.B. Pritzker should run for president. What do you think about that?
I think he should. He's good.
For president? You don't want Joe Biden?
For president.
Even right now in 2024?
Right.
So no more Biden?
No more Biden.
I would like for him to leave Illinois, but I'd rather him not run the country.
Pritzker says he supports President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024. Tomorrow is Governors, Legislators, and Judges Day at the Missouri State Fair. 5 on Your Side political editor Mark Maxwell will be there as Governor Mike Parson and other high-profile politicians make stops at the fairgrounds in Sedalia. On Friday night, Nelly will perform on the grandstand. He'll then perform at the Illinois State Fair as well. That'll be on Saturday, and both fairs wrap up Sunday.
The rising cost of home health, driving many to give up their paycheck to take care of their loved ones.
It's a crisis.
Tonight, the little-known financial help for caregivers struggling to make ends meet. Putting the Busch back in Anheuser-Busch. Tonight, one member of the St. Louis Brewing's family's message to the struggling brand.
Here's that cold front heading our way for tomorrow. Why it isn't an impactful weather maker for us. Plus, when the summertime heat and humidity rolls back in.
Tonight, the death toll in Maui continues to climb. Now more than 100 victims have been recovered in the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than 100 years. Close to 1,000 people are still reported missing. Recovery teams and cadaver dogs are sifting through the ruins searching for victims. Tonight, 6 members of Missouri Task Force 1 are on the island. That includes 4 search canines that arrived today. FEMA has deployed more than 190 search and rescue team members and more than 300 employees to assist people on the island impacted by the fire.
It's going to be a very, very difficult mission, and patience will be incredibly important because of the number of victims.
The White House says President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will travel to Hawaii Monday to get a first-hand look at the fire damage on Maui. If you would like to support the victims of the Maui wildfires, text the word HELP to 314-425-5355. We will send you links to reputable charities and organizations. Today, President Biden once again touting Bidenomics as he marked the 1-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act at the White House.
We have more to do, but inflation is now the lowest point it's been in 2 years. It's lowest among the world's leading economies. Take every major economy in the world. We have the lowest inflation rate. At the same time, wages are growing faster than inflation.
The bill included historic investments in clean energy and climate. Republicans call it a reckless spending spree. While inflation rates have come down from 40-year highs, Moody Analytics says Americans are spending $709 more a month on everyday goods and services than they did just 2 years ago. More people are becoming unpaid caregivers for their loved ones. In fact, 1 in 5 Americans are now taking care of family members. In tonight's Making Ends Meet, Michelle Lee reports they could be leaving life-changing money on the table simply because they don't know where to get help.
More Americans are taking care of their loved ones than ever before as turnover in home care hits an all-time high.
So in home care, we see about a 64% turnover annually for direct care. Yikes. It's worse in skilled nursing.
And as healthcare costs continue to soar.
It's a crisis.
It's something Sarah Lovegreen worries about at the Alzheimer's Association of Greater Missouri. Here, it's not just about fighting disease, it's also about supporting families.
So we see with dementia caregivers, they're more likely to have poor physical health compared to non-dementia caregivers. They have higher rates of depression, higher rates of anxiety, so it's very taxing on the family.
Figuring out what resources are out there for you is incredibly important.
One resource for dementia patients in Missouri is the Structured Family Caregiver Act. It gives families some payment for caregiving, connects them to a home care agency or provider, and even gives families technical support. There are Medicaid requirements that can be challenging, but a big problem is that not enough people know the pilot program even exists.
There's only 300 slots available right now because they are running it as a pilot program. We have not maxed it out, I can tell you that.
The AARP says 48 million Americans take care of loved ones without any pay, even though many have to quit their jobs and still work 24 hours or more a week for their loved ones. In Missouri, there are thousands of people who could use some help.
Our main concern was those 18,000 caregivers who don't have any sort of health insurance, and would be eligible for Medicaid.
As families struggle how to make ends meet and take care of their aging families, experts say take some time to find out which resources could help take off some of the weight. You don't have to do it alone.
We're here to help navigate that for families so that they can really ease the burden as much as possible.
Michelle Lee, 5 on Your Side.
There are still a lot of nuances that families have to navigate to get the help, but bottom line, you should know there is likely a program that can help you get some payment to be a family caregiver. It's something the state and national groups on aging are keenly aware of as more people are living longer and need assistance. Tonight, Billy Bush has a message for the international owners of Anheuser-Busch. He wants it back in the family to make AB great again. Bush told Outkick's Tommy Lahren this week he's ready and willing to buy the brand his family started in St. Louis more than 170 years ago. Belgium-based AB InBev has struggled recently in the wake of a months-long boycott of Bud Light following a social media partnership with a transgender influencer. Let's get back to Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell with your weather first forecast. And you warned us it's not going to last that long, but we are pretty dry going forward.
Yeah, the rain chances, since the beginning of July, we had so many storms come through the St. Louis area from July 1st right up until this past weekend. 7, I think, is the number of severe weather events that were reasonably widespread. We don't see anything like that over the next 7 to 10 days. Looking out at Lambert right now, flights are doing pretty well because it's fairly quiet across our region. Temperatures, they've dropped back mostly into the 60s now. There are a few cooler spots over by Mount Vernon down to 61 degrees. Warrenton's down to 63. DeSoto's 66. In St. Louis, under this clear sky tonight, we have a temperature of 75 degrees. A little bit of a breeze out of the south. Compared with last night when the winds were still, tonight that little bit of a breeze should hold our temperatures just a few degrees warmer. 84 was our top temperature in St. Louis today. Tomorrow morning, after dropping to 62 this morning, we're thinking about 66 tomorrow morning in town. But again, the outlying areas in the coolest spots, close to 60 degrees. So there's not really a whole lot happening close to home. Yes, there is a front to our north. Cold fronts producing thunderstorms across Wisconsin into parts of Minnesota, but the energy with this is staying to our north, and this thing's starved for moisture. So when it comes through tomorrow, the only thing we'll notice is the wind switch, and that's about it. You do have some moisture out west, but this is about to get enhanced. A new tropical storm formed here in the eastern Pacific. Hillary is the name of this tropical storm, and it's strengthened to 50-mile-per-hour winds. Forecast track is going to have this impacting the Baja Peninsula, and eventually that moisture goes into the southwest U.S. And when it does, it could cause some flooding problems later this weekend or into early next week over the deserts of the southwest, Arizona, maybe Southern California. We'll have to wait and see what the exact track looks like. For us, Doesn't look like there's any impact at all. We will see a few clouds tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, you're talking temperatures that are climbing into the upper 80s. A little break on Friday, but not much in the way of humidity into Saturday. Then we head into Sunday and Monday. That's when we will see the heat really building back in. That's when the humidity's coming back in. But none of these high temperatures are forecast to be above the records for this time of year. So just keeping that in mind. But it will be steamy. We should be right around 97 degrees come Monday afternoon. The other thing that we don't have in the next 7 to 10 days, rain. It's pretty much quiet. A lot of sunshine this weekend. You'll still need the sunscreen for sure, but dry conditions with the exception of when you sweat because of the humidity. Dry conditions for the next 7 to 10 days.
All right, Scott, thank you. Holden's in for Frank. What's next?
High school football is just a week away from kicking off, and one local community is saying goodbye to its football field. I'll explain why spending the season on the road isn't necessarily a bad thing. Next in sports.
The Sports Desk is sponsored by Jim Butler Chevrolet, the Midwest's #1 Chevy dealer 10 years running.
Since starting the season 10-24, the Cardinals have looked like a different squad if you look closely. They've gone 44-42 over their last 86 games, and they entered the night with a chance to sweep the A's. But unfortunately, the squad from Oakland had other plans tonight at Busch. After falling behind in the first inning 4-0, the Cardinals would actually load the bases in the bottom of the second with just one out. But after a Tyler Motter strikeout, Tommy Edmonds grounds out softly to second. That was their biggest threat of the night. Oakland would push across runs in the 4th, 5th, and again in the 6th inning on this Zach Goloff double in the center. That would make it 7-0, and this one was more of a beatdown at Busch as Oakland goes on to win by a final of 8-0. Starter Matthew Liberatore said postgame he knew something was just off.
First pitch that I was off, I felt it. You don't try and make necessarily mechanical adjustments while you're out there. You try and go out and compete with what you got that night. There's a couple times where I try and do a couple things to reset myself, but the kind of end goal is just I have what I have right now, and I got to go figure out how to compete with it.
We're just 9 days away from the start of the high school football season, and of course 5 on your sideline, and it's going to look just a little bit different for one local school. Tonight, Webster Grove students and alumni came together to say one final farewell to Moss Field. Over the last 75 years, the field has seen some great moments in prep sports, including the 2009 Miracle at Moss win over Chaminade in the state quarters. Moss Field will be demolished next week as the district begins work on a new multi-million-dollar stadium that will be finished in time for the 2024 football season.
It is very special to get to walk around, and see the tradition and see, the memories that everyone is sharing over here of hearing different classes talk about different games that they had here. But also, too, I think people are excited because they know that, it's time for us to have a facility that rivals the amount of love and respect we have in our community.
This 5 on your side St. Louis City SC coverage is sponsored by Together Credit Union.
Speaking of new stadiums, St. Louis City SC plans to build 11 mini pitches across the region, the first 3 of which will be built in DeSoto Park, Ferguson, and Fairmont City. CEO Carolyn Kindle says the move is about more than simply growing the game.
We really wanted to make sure that we were bringing the sport of soccer to all communities and making it accessible to children of all ages.
11 new mini pitches that we'll create together over the next few years will provide young people with greater access to our game.
We're looking for unused, underutilized spaces that have a lot of community around them, and we've got lucky.
These mini pitches enable youth to have a safe place to play with their friends and try new things.
It's a great way to create lifelong friendships. Obviously, physical activity is good.
Kids learn teamwork, leadership, perseverance, grit. The things that, whether they make it to the pros or not, these are the skill sets that will help them when they go into the workforce one day.
Speaking of soccer, one of the most prominent coaches in the women's game is stepping away. After going 51-5-9 as head coach, Vlatko Andonovski resigned his position with the U.S. women's soccer national team. The move comes less than 2 weeks after the Americans were knocked out of the Women's World Cup earlier than they have ever before. Now the process will start to find a replacement before the 2024 Olympics in France, and it might be time to start polishing up that resume.
Me?
Yeah, you. I mean, hey, they only lost 5 games in, 3 or 4 years? I'm sure you could do that, right?
Yeah, I can't even handle first grade soccer.
Me either.
Thank you. Another fall favorite making an early return. The millions Americans spend to add some spice to the season. Breaking news just into our newsroom. One person is dead, 4 others are hurt in a shooting in East St. Louis. This is a live look at what we're told is a very active scene. This is near 38th Street and Audubon Avenue. Our crew can see several evidence markers. Anyone who may have witnessed this shooting, please call Crime Stoppers at 314-725-8477. 314-725-8477. Broadway is coming to downtown St. Louis. The owner of the Fabulous Fox is adding to its calendar with shows at the Stiefel Theater. The first season begins in January with To Kill a Mockingbird, Hairspray, and The Cher Show. Tickets go on sale in October. You can now get your pumpkin spice fix at Dunkin'. The donut chain introduced its fall menu today, joining 7-Eleven and Krispy Kreme on getting an early start to the pumpkin spice season. Starbucks' famous PSL is reportedly returning a week from tomorrow. According to Nielsen, Americans spent more than $236 million on pumpkin spice flavored foods last year. Thank you for joining us for 5 on Your Side at 10. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon is next. Have a great tomorrow.